Hey, welcome back to another episode of The Warrior Spirit, the show where the inner warriors shine in their light, presented by Praxis 33, the company that aligns your thoughts, goals, and actions to create your best life. I'm your host, Daryl Snow. Have you ever noticed how many successful entrepreneurs look exhausted in person, or how quickly burnout follows the hustle? Success isn't just about business matrix, it's about building a life that energizes you, not depletes you. Today, I'm joined with Andria Jannetti, and with a unique blend of corporate expertise and a passion for wellness, Andrea guides individuals on a transformative journey to optimal health and fulfillment, empowering them to rewrite their health story. Andrea, I appreciate you joining me today, and thank you for
Hello.
your time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, you did a lot of corporate
Yeah.
gig work in the past. Where did you get your start?
Oh man, I've lived 7 lives, I feel like, and I'm only 36. Let's see. My first corporate job was once I finished grad school. I actually worked for Apple out of their headquarters in Austin, Texas. So that was kind of my first like dipping my toe into like the tech industry, and kind of trying to make my way in that field.
So, where did you actually grow up?
In San Francisco, California is where I was born. And then I went to school on the East Bay side of the Bay Area. And then went to school at the University of Colorado. And then I did grad school at Boston University,
Oh, so you've been all over this country.
literally all over. Lived
Where do you like the
overseas.
most?
Yeah, I've lived 7 lives, like I said.
Yeah, I can feel that. I used to when I was younger, a little younger than you are now. I used to just throw a dart at a map every couple years, and
Yeah,
wherever it landed is where I went. So,
I love that.
which
I
coast do
was
you like
definitely like
better?
that for sure.
Which coast do you like better?
I'm definitely a West Coast. I mean, that just feels like home when I go there. I feel oriented on like my internal compass can understand the ocean being on one side of me or the other. But I have recently fallen in love with 30A in Florida. And I just remember the first time I went to the beach, I was like, wait, the water's on this side. Okay, I can do this. And then when I've gone to the actual East Coast and faced like the Atlantic, I'm so disoriented. I'm like, "Why is the ocean on this side of me?" Like, it doesn't feel like, feels so wrong. Like, it feels wrong. I don't know.
Isn't that funny how we get associated
Yeah.
with one side or the other?
Yeah.
Growing up in San
Totally.
Francisco, I don't know a lot of people who grew up in that part of California. What was it
Sure.
like being a big city girl?
I think I had, like, the perfect blend of city life and then suburbia. So my dad lived in San Francisco and my mom lived across the Bay Bridge. So every other weekend I was in the big city. My dad would take me to shows and, off-Broadway shows, and he really taught me, like, the culture side of living in a big city. And then on the other on the other side of the Bay Bridge, I lived with my mom in suburbia, and it was like, there was a Tiffany's downtown and, like, Neiman Marcus was put in, and it was very much like traditional, like, suburbia, tree-lined streets, and we walked to school and all of that kinda stuff. So I feel like I kinda got a blend of both worlds, and I love that part about me because I'm not afraid to go to cities, but I also love, like, the slower pace of suburbia life and just, like, more urban or suburban and, like, rural areas. I love that.
It's not usually common for a city girl or guy to then go to the country, or the country person to
Yeah,
then often go to the big city. What brought
sure.
you out to Colorado then?
Um, I wanted the Division I football school experience, so that was a big draw for me. I wanted to be as far away from home as I could, and my orientation of, like, where far was, like, I really didn't have any connections to, like, the SEC schools and really didn't know a lot about that. So, really, Colorado was, like, the farthest in my head that it made sense to go, and then, after you leave, you're like, "Oh, there's, like, Texas," which I ended up getting to eventually and stuff like that. So, I feel like my map of the United States, like, grew. Like, California is, like, the center of the universe when you live there and grow up there. Like, there is nothing outside of that. So, like, Colorado is kind of like this I think there's like a statistic, it's like the University of Colorado, like the most students from out of state come from California. So it is a school that's like very known for being like, if you want to leave California, you go there. So that was like the big draw was like, okay, it has a Division 1 football school. It feels big, like all the big universities in California. And I just wanted that experience.
And were you at Colorado U with the in Boulder?
Yes, in Boulder. Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful area. When
Oh,
I
it's
was doing
stunning.
my travels around the United States, even
Yeah.
the rest stops in Colorado are
Oh my gosh.
gorgeous. Like,
Yeah.
it's just hard to believe.
Yeah.
So, when you finally got your world map and your orientation, what'd you actually go to college for?
Communication. So I had this thought in my mind that I was going to go to school for sports medicine. So in high school, I was like really big into sports medicine. I assisted the athletic trainers and all of that. And then I got to school and I was like, well, that's a lot of like school that you have to do. And I had a lot more fun just chit chatting in class with people. So communication made a lot more sense for me.
Yeah, you do what you're good at, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You said you wanted to move as far away from home, and I think there's 2
Yeah.
type of kids. There's those of us like you and I who just
Yeah.
want to get away, no
Yeah.
matter where that is, and then there's those
Totally.
that just want to stay home for
Yeah.
whatever reason that is. What made you want to be the kid that just got away?
I think, like, my dynamic of, like, my childhood, it just was something that I wanted to get as far away from my home life as I could. I wanted to make a mark for myself in this world, and I wasn't gonna be able to do that staying at home. At least that was my internal dialogue of, "I'm not gonna be able to do this if I stay here," and I could just create my own identity of who I was, and that was, like, one of the biggest, like, selling features was just like, "Well, this isn't no one's gonna know you here. You can just, like, reinvent yourself. You can be who you wanna be. You can be your real self." And so that's kind of what drew me out there.
It's interesting you're in a creative field. You do a lot of
Mhm.
creative things, and one of the things you wanted to recreate was yourself.
Yeah.
That's a interesting dynamic. I'm as a psychology major, I start getting into
Yeah.
the mental aspect, so that's kind of interesting. What got you into the corporate part of it? Because Colorado, running from the family to
Mhm.
reinvent yourself, that
Yeah.
doesn't really scream, "Let's go corporate."
Well, I feel like the 90s, early 2000s that I grew up in, we women were taught that the next thing you did was you went to college from high school, and then the next thing you did is you started climbing the corporate ladder. There was never a thought in my mind that there was something outside of joining a large company and climbing the ladder and shooting for that C-suite job. That was like my roadmap for my life, and I wanted to make that happen on my own and not have to leverage my family, not have to leverage people in my hometown. I wanted to do that on my own. So that's what drew me into going down the corporate route. I, you know, graduated in my undergrad in 2010. So it was, somewhat in the recession period. The Bay Area was still not really hiring as much with Silicon Valley kind of going through its constriction. So I was like, well, I'll just go back to grad school at this point. And I ended up graduating from grad school at the age of like 23. Yeah, I think 23, not 24, but 23. So I was really young with a master's degree. And then I just started applying for places and ended up landing a job at Apple in Austin, Texas.
You mentioned a couple times wanting to do it on your own and define
Yeah,
yourself. Do you have siblings?
I do. I have 2 younger brothers.
So, what was your cause for wanting to be this independent, gotta do it on my own type of person? Because again, that's not a internal thing that many strive for.
Yeah.
They should, but they don't.
I think I grew up really fast when I was younger, so I, just with my family dynamic, my parents were divorced, my mom worked full time, so oftentimes I would come home from school and I was home alone and had to parent myself. That's not to say anything negative about her. She wasn't home and able to do the parenting. So a lot of times it was me having to take care of myself, take care of my brother. So I took on kind of that like mothery, nurturing behavior like really young. And so I was just very independent. And so I never thought that there was another path forward. It was, you're going to do this because that is what life has handed you. And so it never crossed my mind that there was another option to lean on someone else, to not make it on your own. That was just like never even crossed my mind.
The fact that you did make it on your own, that you did graduate with your master's so young at a time when even in the 90s, women weren't fully appreciated or accepted in the corporate world. You were young, you were pretty, you were smart, you were independent. Did that cause a lot of issues? Because some people would
Oh,
look at that
yeah.
and say, "Oh, she's young, she's beautiful, she is smart, she's funny, she has all these things handed to her."
Oh,
And that
yeah.
doesn't seem like the case for you, was it?
Oh, absolutely not. So I was in a sorority in college. And so that was typically the first question that was asked of me in my interviews, which I found so highly inappropriate. It was, oh, you're pretty. I bet you had so much fun at the fraternity parties. And I'm sitting there in an interview like, excuse me, what? Little did they know, like, I didn't drink until I was 21. So, I mean, like, I was not the stereotypical, like, being crazy person in college, or after, honestly. So, it was very interesting. And so, a lot of um, the jobs that I landed, I learned that networking was the best path forward. I was not going to land a job just with my resume and talking to someone in person at an interview if I was able to get that interview. It was networking, having people vouch for me that I was of quality, someone that they could depend on, a go getter, whatever it was, whatever I needed to fill, I was going to do that. And that was how I got my first job at Apple, was through networking with the community that I was in. I had found the CrossFit community pretty early in the CrossFit days, and it was through connections that I'd made in the gym that allowed me to find someone that worked at Apple, and eventually they helped me when there was an opening in their department. So yeah.
Can you imagine sitting in an interview today, graduating from
Oh my
CU
gosh.
when with Colorado being as wild and legal as it is now?
Yeah. I mean, it was just so crazy when people would say that, and that was with my undergrad degree. So then I went and got my master's, and then it was suddenly, "Oh, that's cute that you have your master's degree, but you have no work experience." It's like, "Okay, well, I can't win this game because you wouldn't hire me before because I was too pretty. I was whatever you wanted me to, or you believed I was." So I went to grad school to shore up that resume, and then now it's, I don't have work experience. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I love that, "Well, I can't get work experience unless I work, and you won't give me work experience because I don't have work." It's like, "Well, what do you want me to do? Just
Yeah.
sit, like, and do nothing?"
Yeah.
What took you from Apple into your next endeavor?
Um, I moved out of Texas. I moved to Phoenix, actually. So that's what kind of took me down the different tracks. I went and worked in the fitness industry. So my love and passion, like I said, I wanted to go into sports medicine. If I wasn't going to do that, I loved wellness. I loved nutrition. I loved being fit myself. I was an athlete my whole life. Probably explains my competitive driven nature. So I left Apple, moved to Phoenix, and got a job in the fitness industry out here. Led marketing teams, ended up in an operations role for the fitness industry, and then after about 3 or 4 years at that company, I actually was approached by Homey, where we used to work, where we met,
Mhm.
and they were at their seed round at the time. So they hadn't achieved their Series A yet. So it was very early on in the company. They were thinking about expanding to Arizona, hadn't quite done it yet. And so I was approached to kind of be like the first in market to build out this area here. And it just seemed like a really fun challenge. I loved real estate. My dad was a GC my whole life. So, like, real estate was something that just kind of was always interesting to me. Um, I loved watching, like, HGTV and just, like, all the things. That's actually why I moved to Austin. I watched some silly episode of House Hunters, and I was like, "Round Rock, Texas looks amazing," and, I ended up moving there.
That's
So,
that's how we felt
um
about Waco. We're like, "Oh,
yeah,
Waco looks really cool for the,
yeah.
for Magnolia Farms,"
Yeah, yeah. Oh, totally. I was like, "Oh, I could be Chip and Joanna Gaines any day,
Yeah.
come on." Yeah, so, I left the fitness industry, went back into the corporate space, and did some fun things with Homey, and then that kinda just kept my trajectory going back in the corporate world.
I'm gonna show you a few things, and we'll talk about them as we go, okay?
Okay.
Let me bring these on.
Oh,
Because
no.
you are diverse, and I will give you
Okay.
diverse, okay? And it's one of the things I love about you. You're not afraid to try new things. So currently, you're doing, luxury real estate.
I am, yeah.
So what made you actually get your especially working with Homey,
Yeah.
what made you actually get your real estate license?
Yeah, so when I was still living in California, this was after I had graduated from undergrad, I did get well, I had studied for my real estate license out there, and then life, you end up ending relationships with your college boyfriend, and life was just like, "Okay, this isn't really what we're gonna have you go down right now," and God shifted my life, and I ended up moving to Texas, and so I never actually sat for my real estate license in California. So it was this thing that was kind of just, like, always dangling over me of, like, I never actually became an agent. It was something I wanted to do, and I never did it, and then when I worked for Homey, it was, "Oh, yeah, we'll have you do it when your team goes and gets their real estate license." Well, that ended up not happening because someone had to keep working, and I was the team lead for Arizona, so I ended up having to shoulder the team while they were at school, and then the ball just keeps rolling, and I never got the opportunity to go, and so it was just one of those things where I finally left the corporate world, I guess last May, just was, like, very done with climbing the ladder. There were a lot of signs and things that kind of kept manifesting for me, and I just knew that God was telling me like, "Hey, this corporate ladder game that you keep playing is not it's not fulfilling for you. You are chasing something that is never going to fill a void for you." So I left the workplace, like left the workforce and kind of sat and just like prayed for like 6 months, just like, okay, what am I going to do? What is the next thing? Started helping my husband with his company, getting it really structured and organized and just leveraging the skill set that I had to help him. And in that time, we kind of started toying with like, well, maybe you should just get into real estate because it can be as full time as you want it to be. It can be as part time as you want it to be. To be successful, obviously, you need to treat it as a full time job, but like it's yours to kind of make it what you want. And so, literally, I think it was December, probably the last week of December, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to sign up for the class that starts next week. And then I just did it. So
Uh,
that's kind of my MO is if I just decide to do something, I just do it.
yeah, other than my securities license, the real estate license was the second hardest certification
Yeah,
or license that I had to get. So
for
kudos to you
sure.
for getting that. And then you also have fitness and
Oh my
modeling. And I
gosh.
love this picture of you because you're doing this heavy squat in high heels. Like,
Oh my gosh. Okay, so that is hilarious. That photo, I was coming from work from Apple, so this was in Austin, and I don't even remember why I decided to do this, but it was funny because I think I, like, forgot my weightlifting shoes or something, like, there was some premise as to why I was wearing basically platform lifters, and I know it looks like it's a lot of weight, but I am not actually lifting a lot of weight. Those are practice weights, so I think they weigh, like, maybe 5 pounds each on each side. So they're, like, meant for when you're, like, learning positioning in Olympic lifting so that you're off the ground the same height that you would be if you were, using regular plates. So it's for, like, positioning and just, like, having some tension on you, but it's actually not I'm not actually lifting a lot of weight. I would not do that with high heels, I'm not. I
You
don't have
shoulda
a death
shoulda
wish
let
or
the
anything.
shoulda let the illusion still go there.
I know, but I feel like
That's
it's a
probably the
lie,
picture
so I
that
don't
got
want
you
it
your
to be a
husband,
lie.
right?
Say it again?
That's probably the picture that got you your husband, right? She can do the high
Uh,
heels.
yeah, probably. I probably sent that to him. I was like, "Hey, what do you think?"
Yeah, that's funny. And then, after that, you go into, this one where you're,
Yeah,
again, into
still
wellness and
yeah, still
explain what,
doing that, yeah.
Tariana is.
Yeah, so, like, when I left the corporate world in May last year, I obviously had, like, a lot of time to just, like, sit and figure out, like, what brought me joy, what fulfilled me, and obviously going back to, like, the foundations and basics of myself, it was wellness, nutrition, those things are, like, my bread and butter, like, I can talk about them all day long, I love seeing people achieve their goals, whether it's, you know, kicking a chronic disease or it's dealing with inflammation in their body, whatever. So I built this company, if you will, and it's been really fun to just help women that are dealing with just different health issues spanning the gamut. You know, I have clients that are in their 20s, I have clients that are in their 60s, so they all are very different and have different needs. But it's been really fun to build that, and it's something that I can do with the time that I have, and help my husband with his business and do real estate, you know, so I'm busy.
You are busy. And speaking of your husband, you also have then these. This is,
Yeah, yeah.
Dax Gray Motorsports.
Yeah, so we're really excited. We are kicking off our next season right now. We've got a driver out of Florida for our Lamborghini Super Trofeo series. And it's really my husband's like passion project, kind of like Terranay is my passion project. This is his passion project. And I obviously supported it. It's super fun to go and travel and be at the track. But don't ask me to name any part on a car. I will probably get it wrong. And he just rolls his eyes at me because he's like, I've told you this 1,000 times. I'm like, yeah, I don't care. like, but I love it. It's really fun. But yeah, so we've been a part of SRO in the past. We are now a part of IMSA, and IMSA is owned by NASCAR. So the cars are typically like well, there's I guess there's different series within IMSA, but the series we're in is Lamborghini is the main manufacturer. So all the cars that are on the track look the same. They might have a different wrap for different sponsors and stuff like that, but it's like seeing a NASCAR race where all the cars look the same. They just have different wraps on them. So it's a single make series. And then we've done that. We've done yeah, I think that's about it. I don't think we've done Porsche Carrera Cup. We had a client that was talking about doing that, but we've not actually done that.
What's nice about all that, though, is that you guys support each other in your own passions. He
Yeah,
supports you in your passion and your purpose, and you support him in
yeah,
yours, and that's what makes for a beautiful marriage. How did you guys meet?
absolutely. We met through CrossFit. So he was a head judge in the age group pavilion in Madison, Wisconsin. And I was in charge of all of the athletes. So I had been working for the CrossFit Games since 2011. And this was as like a contractor role. So it wasn't like a full time, every single day, 9 to 5 type thing. But when competition season would come, I would be working as a contractor while working full time. And then I would take off time to go to the actual world championships. And so this was at the world championships. And we met that weekend, but we didn't really talk. He'll tell you that he came up to see like my name on my name tag during
Sure,
while I was setting up for the award ceremony, and apparently
sure.
I told him to buzz off. I do not remember that. I was clearly focused on the job and task at hand.
Yeah,
But I saw him during the whole weekend, but I obviously just kept it very professional, and so did he. And then after the weekend, we started talking and literally haven't stopped talking since, obviously. So
I love
yeah,
that. I love
yeah.
that, especially my wife and I have been together 10 years, and
Oh, I
what's
love that.
nice is, we met online, but I was
Yeah.
getting my master's,
Okay.
and she was working full time, and I had just moved into an apartment and all I wanted to do was update my, address because I was going to school full time, working full
Yeah.
time, had no time for a relationship. And I
Sure.
came across her picture and she was in Boston, jumping over a wave, wearing a pair of those heels that you were lifting the weights at.
Yeah, yeah.
And she had them over her head. And I'm like, oh, she looks really cute and happy. I just need to say hello. And
Yeah.
so the way I tell the story and the way she tells it's a little different, but I say that I reached out to say hi, and she said, "I don't text. If you wanna talk, we have to meet in person." I'm like,
Oh,
"Oh,
I like that.
yeah." I'm like, "Oh, okay, spunky. Okay. Well, I don't have
Yeah,
time, but I'm gonna make time for her
yeah.
because she's spunky." And so we were supposed to have a 30-minute meet and greet, turned into a 5-hour conversation, and we've been together every day since. So
Oh, I love that. That's
yeah,
awesome.
it was a great thing, and I look at you and your husband, and I'm like, "Yeah, they're gonna make it because they got that same dynamic." So,
Yeah. No,
uh
I so were you guys long distance or not?
no, the
Okay.
picture was just of her in Boston. She
Got
was
it.
here in
Okay, got it.
Phoenix, and I was here in Phoenix, and so we got
Yeah.
together, like, the next day or 2 days later,
That's awesome.
and she, she was tired coming from work, wasn't even gonna go. Her girlfriend said, "Oh, you're only in and out in 30 minutes anyway, just go," and
Yeah.
thankfully she did, and we've been together, 10 years, so
Oh,
it was
that's
great.
awesome.
But
Yeah, we
you
met 8 years ago, so yeah,
yeah,
we're
and I
right behind you guys.
I love that you guys support each other in all that. And as someone that has a passion for wellness like you do, how do
Yeah.
you actually help these people on their transformative journey? And how do you actually empower them to rewrite their health? And that's basically what we're doing when we're getting healthy. We're
Yeah,
rewriting our health. So, how do you go
yeah.
about that?
Um, Typically we start with like goals, like why are we even having this conversation? What is it that you are either dissatisfied with or wanting? And it's shifting the mindset to instead of losing weight, I say it's like gaining your freedom, right? Like I think when we have things framed in the negative, a lot of times that can be well, it's negative. So our mind is typically in a negative mindset. And so I always start with goals, and then everything that I do is individualized to the person. So I'm always looking at like, where's their sleep at currently? How do they eat? What is their lifestyle like? Do they walk? Do they not walk? Do they have good circadian rhythm? So I'm looking at that sleep patterns. I'm looking at what's their work life balance situation. Do they have balance in any capacity? Are they wanting that? What's the goal, basically? And then from there, it's creating a plan and having like very structured check-ins with people because a lot of times there are people like myself where you set a goal or I can set a goal. If you give me the plan, I'm very autonomous. I don't necessarily need you to check in with me. I'm probably going to follow it to a T. But there are people that that is not the case. And so it's like being able to understand the person and who they are and how they best respond. Do they like text check ins? Do they want to do a more like FaceTime kind of conversation? Like, how do they best respond? And what is the best way to support them? So everything that I do is very individualized. I don't like creating like here's your 6-week templated plan to your bikini body and stuff like that. Like I just don't think that it's realistic for most people. And depending on where you're starting, 6 weeks is probably not realistic anyways. So I'm not a big fan of templated things. I think it can work in some instances, but for the most part, I like tailoring things. And then it's breaking their lifestyle down to the basics. And we always start there. So it's water, sleep, rising with the sun, sleeping with the moon, and getting blood flow every single day. And then we start getting into the nitty gritty and granular stuff.
And when we introduced the interview today, we talked about how a lot of entrepreneurs look tired or
Yeah,
that the burnout is soon after the
totally.
hustle and the grind.
Yep.
W- what do you attribute some of that to as an entrepreneur yourself and working with
Yeah.
others who experience that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was one of the biggest reasons I left the workplace in May was I was so unfulfilled, but I was following the directions of everyone else around me. It was their time that I had to be at work. It was their time that I had to leave work. It was their time when I could take a lunch break, if I could go outside for a couple minutes. And coming from a health and wellness background, I was such a stickler to certain things and always being on calls with blue light blocking glasses and just doing everything I could. I have a stand up desk, a treadmill for underneath the desk if I couldn't get outside. But I also knew that my health was starting to diminish and my light inside was diminishing. That tired that you're talking about, and I can't solve it for everyone. Especially if they are working for someone else. A lot of times that's just the nature of working for someone else. But if you can minimize it to the best of your abilities by doing a lot of the things like going to bed at a decent time, removing the blue light from your life, starting at about 7 o'clock in the evening, you can reduce the tired. If you're working a job that's not fulfilling to you, you're always going to be tired. So I typically try and figure out with people for them to come to that conclusion of like, is this job that you're working giving you life and light and abundance, or is it draining you every single day? And if it is, what could you be doing that's different that can still provide for your family, for yourself, whatever the case may be? Because a lot of times we can unlock health by getting rid of and removing things in our life that are like weighing us down, the luggage that we're lugging with us.
Do you think that it's possible to build a life that energizes you and not depletes you if you're not an entrepreneur? Or do you think you have to work for yourself in order to really be energized by life?
Um, I think there's an answer for everybody there. So for me, working for someone else is draining. But that's my personality and my characteristics and everything. There are some people that absolutely love being told what to do. And I like my brother. So my brother struggled growing up all the time. And it wasn't until he went into the military where they tell him what time to wake up, what time he can go to the bathroom, what time he can go to sleep, what time he can sneeze, like everything, right? Like you go to boot camp, you're not doing anything that they're not telling you that you're doing. And he thrives. So now he's active duty in the Navy and is thriving, and he is working for someone. There are 10 people probably above him all telling him what to do, right? And he keeps getting early promotions and he is doing so well. So it is so dependent on the person and who they are. Now, if we're talking about a corporate space, I would say, does your job give you life? Do you love the mission that your company is striving for? All those things can be fulfilling and you can work for someone, right? I think there was a time in my life when working for someone was fine because I didn't really know any different and I needed to learn certain skills and I didn't have confidence to do it on my own. But as I grew, I learned confidence, I learned who I was, and I learned how I work best. And ultimately, that was pushing me more and more towards entrepreneurship.
My wife and I joke because she worked 30 years for Tech Data,
Yeah,
one company, and I
sure.
had 30 jobs in that same time frame.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah,
I've owned 3 businesses, I've,
sure.
built other businesses, and I've gone back in and out of the corporate space, and
Yeah,
I seem to only be able to last about a year and a half to 2 years before the corporate world absolutely drains me
sure.
because I don't like the, politics. I don't
Mhm.
like the injustice. I don't like that the
Yeah,
people on the floor aren't being treated fairly. I don't like
sure.
that they won't speak up for themselves because I'm
Yeah,
very opinionated figure. Uh,
yeah,
and so, I just get burned out by the game. And
right.
then also I have this low tolerance for not being a high achiever. And when you have reached your
Yep,
pinnacle and can't go any further,
yep,
it's not a challenge for me anymore. And then it's not fun. So
right.
I'm one of the people like you that would rather be entrepreneurial on my
Yeah,
own,
yeah,
but corporate world, for her worked out great because 30
sure.
years, one company, she did great. Now she was a rule breaker and saw the HR department occasionally, but, uh, but still, I think it does depend, and you can build a life either way. I don't think it has
Sure.
to be one blanket, but the
Right.
health part of it has to be one blanket, not
Yeah.
cookie cutter. But there are certain things that you named that have to happen for you to
Mhm.
be healthy. And so
Right.
when someone comes to you and they're depleted and they say, "Andrea, I know I need to drink water, and I know I need to
Yeah.
sleep, and I know I need to get off the computer,
Yeah.
but what can I do for myself?" Like, how do you guide these people beyond those minute basics that are foundational?
I mean, I still stick with the basics. So ultimately, why are you coming to me? If you know all those things, why are you still seeking help? And it's probably because you're not able to do it on your own, or you think you know, but you're not confident in making those steps forward. And so we're going to just do one thing. I'm not going to say, hey, we're doing macros, and you're also going to start a 5 day a week program at the gym, and you're going to be waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and you're not watching TV tonight. Like, I don't do that because that's overwhelming. Of course, there are people like me where if you told me that, I do it all the next day because you said that's what's gonna get me to my goal, I will do it. But that isn't everybody, and so it comes down to that kind of evaluation period of, like, getting to know them. Who are they? Why are they here? Why are they talking with me specifically? And why are they seeking help? And I oftentimes will ask them, like, "When was the last time you committed to something? How did it go?" It's like digging into when do they typically fall off of a program? And that can tell you a lot about the person. Is it they do great until Susie invites them to a birthday party, and then they don't know what to do? And so it's okay, now we need to learn how to equip you with ways to handle social situations, because maybe everyone told you how to handle your work life and you're like, I'm good Monday through Friday, but then I don't know what to do Saturday or Sunday for that matter, right? And so it's like they just maybe didn't have the right tools for those particular days or situations. And so it's just digging in individually with different people. Maybe it's that they have kids and they have mom guilt. That's a big one of like, well, I don't want to be away from my kids. I feel like I'm leaving them, and at the end of the day, it's getting them to recognize that when mom is happy, the kids are happy. And when they take care of themselves, they're going to be around for their kids a lot more than they would if they didn't take care of themselves. And so it's the guilt part I see a lot with a lot of my friends, and just like my age group in general. You have those that have figured it out, and then those that really struggle with it.
Part of our society is, especially our interaction with others, is built around food and drink. So it's like an
Mhm.
alcoholic trying to feel
Yeah,
like included when
absolutely.
they can't drink. Well,
Yep.
let's go do something. Well, what are we going to do? We're going to gather and socialize and
Yeah,
drink. So it's kind
sure.
of the same with the food issue or the
Absolutely.
health issue,
Yep.
and the guilt. I think people beat themselves up way too much. They
Yeah.
feel guilty that they're not doing it. They feel guilty that they know they should do it. They feel guilty that they
Mhm.
don't have time to do it, or they feel guilty that they're taking away from somebody else while they're doing it. Like
Yep.
all these scenarios of guilt, if we can just get past the guilt and living an authentic life in the way you want to live it that lights your soul on fire,
Yeah.
like I don't recommend this, but if your soul is lit on fire by sitting there eating a bag of Cheetos every day, all day, then that's the life you're choosing. But if
Yeah.
you want to break that and it's not fulfilling you, then you got
Right.
to do something different
Right.
at the expense of something else, because every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. If you're
Right.
saying yes to the Cheetos, you're saying no to the weight loss. If you're saying
Totally.
no to the family time, you're saying yes to your time. Like there's got
Mhm.
to be a balance and a give and take. And
Right.
most people, I don't feel, A, want to be that authentic. They want to lie to themselves. And
Sure.
B, they don't really understand that guilt is a big part of what's holding them back. Guilt and shame.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Guilt, shame for sure. And then they create the excuses around those things. And they feel that their excuses are so insanely valid. But ultimately, if you can peel back the layers on it, a lot of times they're self inflicted wounds that they're creating themselves. No one in their family said, Mom, I don't want you to be gone at 6 a.m. to go to the gym. No one said that to them. They created that. They created the story in their head of this thing that's gonna take place that hasn't taken place and probably won't. So it's a lot of psychology goes into it, as you know. So it's really just like being a sounding board for them to come to their own conclusions. I am not a psychologist. If I see that someone really needs that help, I obviously refer out. My goal is always to be more of a life coach for them, to be a mirror and reflection for them so that they can hopefully come to the conclusions themselves. So those are kind of the ways that I approach it.
And I like that you know your limitations and you don't
Yeah.
try to make it a one size fit all program. And you are definitely that unique blend of corporate and entrepreneurial. So you can understand both worlds, you can navigate
Yeah.
both worlds. You understand the fitness side of it, you understand the wellness side of it, which I believe are two different things because
Very much.
I
Yes.
can my body can be comfortable at 220 or
Sure.
225, but all the charts say that I'm obese.
Yeah.
Well, am I if 90% of it's muscle? Now, it's not in my case, but still,
Yeah.
right?
Well, BMI is such a bad indicator of health and wellness, so, yeah, I throw that stuff out. I'm like,
It
"Whatever."
through right, and I think most people should. They should throw their scale
Yeah.
out, and they should throw
Yes,
those charts out because it's not an
totally.
indication of whether or not you're healthy or well.
No,
So,
absolutely not. Yeah, and I think, like, concierge medicine, personalized medicine, these are the things that are the way of the future right now. So many companies are starting to pop up. I partner with a company called Functional Health, and, like, they are revolutionizing patients' access to or just like anybody's access to their own blood work on demand and not having to go through their doctor who has to write a script, who has to get permission probably from some random person to be able to pull the certain lab that you want, and then figure out if it's covered by insurance or not and all the things that go with that. So I think, like, being more personalized is definitely the way that health wellness is going. You see it with the health tech, you have Aura Rings and Whoops and all the things right now where you can see your own personalized data and hopefully equip yourself with education to make actionable steps based on the data points that you're seeing.
and I think it is very important to know your numbers.
Yeah,
You know, if
for sure.
my wife has been sick for 10 years, chronically ill, and she knows her numbers like the back of her hand. So she
Yeah,
knows her body when things are out and when things are not.
right,
And doctors only want to fit you in a box and write a prescription.
right.
Even if your numbers are skewed on their chart, if they're right
Mhm.
for you, know your body well enough and take
Yeah,
interest enough in your own health and
right.
wellness to figure out what is right for you.
For sure. Yeah, and I think it's not doctors' fault. I know so many people that go into medicine with, like, the best of intentions. They want to help people. It's the landscape that they find themselves in that really puts them in a box, and they're not able to work outside of that box unless they go independent, build their own practice, accept cash over insurance, like, all the things. They are handcuffed. And I have a lot of friends that are just trying to make it through whatever period of time they've committed to so that they can go and do concierge medicine, so that they can build their own practice because they are so handcuffed in there. And it's handcuffing us as patients because they're not able to address certain things. They have to refer to specialists, and the specialist is the only one that can talk to you about this thing, but this thing might be connected to another thing. And so now you have two different people that aren't talking to each other, trying to solve for something that neither of them knows the other exists, right? So, yeah, I feel like if you can empower yourself as a person, an individual, and know your body, you're gonna be in a way better spot.
We have been to many doctors because of her illness, and it's
Yeah.
gotten to the point where you can only talk to them about one thing at a time. You used to be able to go
Yeah.
in and talk about what's going on, and
Yep.
now you have to make an appointment for every separate
Yep.
issue you want to talk to them about. So
Yep.
they get like 5 to 9 minutes per patient, and then have
Yep.
to, by insurance standards, go on to the next patient.
Yeah.
So
They have to code
it be
it, whatever you came in for that 5 to 9 minutes about,
yep,
that's it.
makes it
Yeah.
very, very challenging. I love that you are so diverse, and one of the other things that I'm gonna switch gears here real quick on,
Okay.
you were, nice enough to come on my podcast, but you recently started your own
I
podcast.
did, yeah.
Call Her
We
Wifey.
did. Yeah, so, our podcast is called Call Her Wifey. It's a play on words with a other famous podcast, and it's the complete opposite of that other podcast. So ours is Christian women chatting about all things girlhood, marriage, singleness. It's with my one of my best friends who I actually met at Homey. And we connected actually out here at a I don't know, Daryl, if you were at this event. There was a we did some philanthropic activity down in like the Gilbert Chandler area, and we like filled boxes with foods to ship off to underserved areas across the world. And at the end of the event, the organization was a Christian organization, and they said if anybody wants to pray over the food before it gets shipped out, we're going to be doing that over here in this corner. So myself as a Christian, I walked over, and Alexa started walking over, and we like looked at each other. We're like, oh, wait, there's another Christian at this company. That's nice. So we prayed over the food, and then our friendship just kind of blossomed from there. So that was a really cool thing. And so we started this podcast in November. So I think we're at like episode 18, comes out tomorrow, Wednesday, on Wednesdays. And it's just been a lot of fun. We started it kind of with like a theme of how we are going to do it, but we're very much like in a flow state right now of like figuring out what our audience likes, what stories are resonating with them, what topics are resonating with them, and just kind of like evolving it as we go. We hope to eventually do more video format. Right now, we are living in two different states. So we do similar to what we're doing right here, recording over a laptop, but our dynamic definitely is more exciting when we're in person and we're just like feeding off of each other's energy. So we're trying to figure out how do we transition the podcast to being something that we can do in person, do YouTube videos with, and just continue to grow it in, an organic way, and hope that we can serve people and just use it as a platform to spread the word of Jesus. And that's just like our thing. And it's been really fun.
And where can it be found?
It's on Apple Podcasts and Spotify right now. We are nowhere else that I am aware of. But eventually, hopefully, we are gonna be, like I said, hopefully getting onto YouTube eventually with some fun video content, and then you can always follow us on Instagram, call her wifey.
Well, I love that you do all that. So out of
Thanks.
all the dynamics that is Andrea, what is your favorite? What are you like? I know you're diverse and all of them are
Yeah,
fun, but what
totally.
really lights you up?
I mean, I can talk about wellness and nutrition forever and ever. It's definitely like my like who I am and what I think about on a daily basis and how I live my life. So I feel like that is something that I absolutely love doing. Real estate has been so fun, and it's been something that, like I said, I've wanted to do as an agent my whole life, and I genuinely love homes and the stories, and I like people, and I think that's why I love coaching is I like getting to know people. And so when you can build relationships in real estate, as you know, you can really get to know someone and why are they moving and what is that life chapter that they're entering into. And I think that, the home is for most people the largest purchase they're ever going to make. It's a very emotional decision for a lot of people. Very few people are making it very logically, and if they are, they're an investor most likely. So it's very fun from that perspective. It can be very stressful, but I do love just like building relationships with people. So I would say like those are my two things that I do like every single day, um, and it just like gives me a lot of joy.
Well, you're very good at all of it. You're very good at the
Oh,
connection.
thank
You're very
you.
good at putting yourself out there. And one thing that I do appreciate about you, you're unabashedly you.
Thanks.
Opinions sometimes in this PC world can be masked over and kind of
Yeah,
squashed just to fit in, especially when you're in business and you want to try to be,
yeah,
pleasing everyone. So I'm just so grateful. You're unabashedly Christian. You follow with your
yeah,
heart, you lead with God, and then you do service for others.
yeah.
So I
Oh,
appreciate that you're out there and shining your
thank
light in the way
you.
that you can. So
Yeah, it's like you said, it's not easy, especially if you have worked in the corporate world. You have to tiptoe and I'm not good at that. I mean, I can, but I am very opinionated, and I think that that's what serves me well. It gives me like, I have that confidence to speak my mind, and so being an entrepreneur makes a lot more sense. If I'm not your cup of tea, you don't have to work with me, right?
that's right. You might be somebody's whiskey.
Yeah,
I'm gonna ask
exactly.
you the,
Which I probably am more. More tequila, actually, to be
tequila. I'm
honest.
gonna ask you the, cheers to that. We're gonna ask you the final question that I ask all my guests.
Okay.
What does a warrior spirit or having a warrior spirit mean to Andrea Jannetti?
Ooh, I love that question. I think it is who I am at my core, right? It is that always going after what I set my mind to. I go after it. It's that confidence to just be who you are and not be afraid to offend other people. You're never going to be friends with everyone. And I think in this PC world that we live in, there's a lot of people that mask themselves and aren't able to be their authentic and true self. And so having that warrior spirit is like that fighting for who you are, fighting for your loved ones, fighting for whatever you're passionate about, and going out there and just making it happen.
Well, I'm glad that you have a warrior spirit. I'm glad that you're in my tribe and I'm in your circle. And,
Absolutely.
thank you for joining me today on doing this. And,
Yeah,
it's been a real blessing. And if you ever want to come back, let's do it again.
absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'll definitely come back for sure.
Yeah, you're welcome. And if you would like to hook up not hook up, if you'd like to connect with Andrea, you can do so on her social platforms. And I really want to make sure that I get all these up here for you. So
Oh,
you
I
got,
appreciate that.
you got your websites, you got
Yes.
your podcast,
All the places.
all the places, your Instagram, and your Facebook and LinkedIn.
Yes.
So we have all the places, the Motor Motorari and Terranini websites,
Yep.
your podcast, Caller Wifey, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So find her everywhere, and may you continue to find your way in your own journey, health, and wellness. And I just want to thank you for joining us on this edition of A Warrior Spirit. Be sure to like or subscribe so that you catch all the episodes. Have a wellness and a fitness day that is conducive for you, and blessings to all of you.
It's not just about the fight, it's how we rise from it.